out of the phenomenal generosity of this person. Imagine $1 million. Did you know that the standard issue Air Force fighter plane costs $120 million? One. And they line these things up on the runways of various airfields 120 deep. We are completely paralyzed or unable to perceive the disparity in the way the money is spent. If someone were to give, or had even the power to give, because private wealth is not like governmental wealth. If you're a private person and you control a fortune of $500 million, you are among the 1,000 richest people in the world. If you're a government with a budget of $500 million, you have your hand in everybody's pocket around the world because you're a beggar. If someone were to give to the New Age the price of one fighter plane, and half the governments in the world have dozens of these things, that $120 million would write a ticket to rebirth for every center in the state. All the movies, films, pilgrimages, conferences, conscience-raising, experimental programs of fringe scientific research, all of that would be prosecuted to a glorious end. The amazing thing is, we who have no money have all the ideas. If the cost of one fighter plane were spent on the promotion of ideas to save the world would probably advance 50% closer to its own salvation. So what is the matter with us? Why are we so perverse? What is it that drives the inertia of these dominator systems? Because we're not asking for half the military budget, not even close, and yet we're not being cut any slack at all. And it doesn't make any sense. People love to talk about the new freedom in the Soviet Union and how exhilarating it must be. My hope for the Soviet Union is that they shame us with the level of their freedom of discourse and their ability to look their past in the face and reassess where they are going. So this is not a plea for $1 million. This is a plea for consideration of the perverseness of the way we set our priorities. The world can be saved. It's simply a matter of diverting, I would say, 5% of GNP to do it. Well, only a terminally psychopathic person would refuse to divert 5% of their energy flow toward their own salvation. If we can't get our act together to do that, I think the calm and cool judgment of Gaia Almighty is, who needed such clowns? I'll hang out with the octopi, the dolphins, the butterflies, and the termite nests. I don't need this headache. I don't need acid rain. I don't need strontium in the environment. I don't need extraction of petroleum products and tons of junk in orbit in order to foster what? Shakespeare? There hasn't been a Shakespeare for 500 years. These clowns aren't producing anything. H-bombs don't make it in the Gaian scale of values. So the point here is tremendously perverse misdirection of resources, a tremendous patience with institutions that have proven that they are either ineffective or actually the enemy. Institutions like the Brazilian government, large pharmaceutical companies, capitalism, so forth and so on. Why are we so patient when our world, our children's world, the world of all future life on earth hangs in the balance. I think that the time is really coming when people are going to have to stand up and be counted. And I hope when you will leave here this afternoon that you will feel that our group experience has given you permission to come out of the environmental closet, the psychedelic closet, the caring for the fate of the human family closet, because all of these things are either dismissed as perverse, dangerous, or airheaded. And obviously, they are not. This is the most serious business that we could be about. This is what we were born to do. It must be, because if this is not what we were born to do, then what we were born to do is witness the death of the only living world we know. And I, for one, am not ready to stand mute witness to that kind of an atrocity. Do you want to add anything, Nicole, and then we'll take more questions? Anybody out here? We'll take questions now till around 3 o'clock. Daniel.
What's happening currently with research on some of the plants that you're wanting to call up and trying to save? I know you say not money, but are you getting any interest from natural products people or anything?
Well, yes. I mean, we're sort of in a bind, a time bind. We now have many of these medically interesting or potentially medically interesting plants growing, but they're not yet large enough that we can make bulk biomass harvest for research. In the next 2 or 3 years, we hope to be able to do this. We are growing Castanospermum australis, which is a plant with a potential impact on inhibiting the AIDS virus, and we're beginning to supply a lab with that. Hopefully, Sangre de Grado will come on.
The tababuya?
Tababuya, we're growing that, and we're hoping to create a scheme. We have that, the Uncaria.
Guianensis, those are terribly important. I have seen them work. I have seen a man who was sent to Lima with cancer in terminal, just no prognosis at all. I went over his medical records, and he had 10% cancer cells in the bloodstream. At the time, they came to him in the hospital and said, the doctor said, "It's awfully sorry, but you've got to leave because we're going on strike tomorrow." And so it was the biggest break he ever had. Some friends came to take him home, and the doctors told him he's got about 9 days left. He's dying now. They took him home. They started him on this uña de gato and a few other things. The other things were he had a cystitis and generalized septicemia as well. And in 2 weeks he was walking around. The strike lasted 31 days, and the doctors were absolutely floored. They didn't believe he was the same person. When I met him, he was back at his original job. He was 54 years old, I think, or 58, which was teaching ballet and flamenco. And flamenco, I have done a lot of dance, and flamenco is the most exhausting thing I have ever attempted. And I've known him now for 10 years or so, and he's still fine. I took the director of the Siberia Cancer Ontology Investigation Laboratories